There's nothing like a bottle of glue to make the time pass easier as a youngster. So, you know, I thought, what the hey, it's safe, it's fun, and
Well, the progressive pacification is in full swing, and it's taking shape in the push for a federal minimum wage hike to $15 an hour that will crush low-skilled workers, decimate small businesses, and boost massive corporations who will benefit from smaller competitors going bust.
Hey everyone. So I wanted to share something with you because I feel like this is a thing. I think we need to talk about it. So as you know, I am old. I just turned 40. And one of the things that I grew up with was a little thing called MTV. Music television. And one of the things that was a big part of that was that there were a lot of music videos by a lot of fucking good bands. This was before, MTV Cribs. So what I wanted to share was that how weird the world becomes when you start looking up things. So I'll share the initial article and we'll make sure you guys can hear it. Okay, so I'm just going to pick like a little section right here, and I'm going to let you guys see what I'm looking at, and I want your guys' honest take. I want you to really just come with me on a journey. Please tell me if you can't hear this. I'm going to be doing voice to text in just a second. Starting now. If it decides to. Did it get sound? How else do I put my damn headphones on? Then I can hear it. You are a robot. Hoggers. Let's do this. There's no TTS? God damn it. Stupid thing. I'll just read it. Fuck it. Before I had children, I thought I knew the kinds of folks I despised. People such as the overly demonstrative dad who uses his stadium voice while playing catch at the playground so he can prove to everyone in 6 countries what a hands-on parent he is. The overbearing stroller pusher who block the entrances to eateries because $1,000 bugaboos and stokes deserve their own valet. Before I procreated myself, I thought out loud, bougie parents are the bane of my existence. So, tell me if you guys notice any weird dog whistles here. Such is the naivety of a newly gestating. As my sapling happily incubated in my love shack, a new rage was also brewing. Little did I know, my ire at other parents actually mimicked my political expression. The modern world is dead set against libertarian parenting, and it's high time for a playground smackdown with a real enemy. It's called attachment parenting, and although it is being sold to the most fragile and naive group of people on the planet, new parents, it really is the same old horse shit Marx and Engels apologists try to shove back into the horse when communism fell. Attachment parenting follows a list of approved classics: The Connected Child, Attachment Parenting, Whatever Happened to Mother, and so on. But don't be fooled. They want to elevate the collective over the individual. They hate the idea of competition or the market selection might allow the cream to rise. Their philosophy is simple: from the parent's abilities to the child's needs. So, before I move on, I want to give you sort of an understanding of how fucked up this is. This is written by a woman by the name of Lisa Kennedy Montgomery. Kennedy, as she's been known to be called, is a former VJ on MTV. This is a woman I grew up with. She would be in my bedroom often on the television talking about which videos were going to be coming up, playing alternative stuff. And, the the newest by Bush, the newest by Nirvana. This would be stuff that was just a thing. You'll also notice that she's labeled as an American libertarian, political commentator, radio personality, etc. And you'll notice that she's been on Fox Business News. Holy shit. She has a bachelor's degree in philosophy, so yeah. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but she's making some weird spicy political takes that really aren't backed by her stuff. So she used to be apparently something of a social conservative. She was a speaker at the 1996 Republican National Convention. Supported Dan Quayle and Bob Dole. She is for the following. Kennedy is a supporter of same-sex marriage. That's a lie, but moving on. And officiating the weddings of fellow Fox contributor Guy Benson to his husband Adam Wise. How very lovely, but you support a group of people that hate that. She also supports privatizing Social Security. She supports the war. She opposes, the war on drugs and bureaucratic regulation. She is critical of neoconservatism. She later abandoned social conservatism, saying, social conservatives was really bringing me down. And I realized as time went on that I wasn't a Bush conservative. I was really a libertarian. She was first introduced to libertarianism when Kurt Loder, another well-known newscaster on this, I don't know, Angry Literati, it's libertarian nonsense, that Kurt Loder, one of the news people on there, suggested she read Ayn Rand's Introduction to Objectivist Epistemology. Or epistemology, excuse me. Epistemology. All right? I can never pronounce that word. So, is it epistemology? Is it? Okay, fair enough. I thought I had it right the first time. There's my associates in philosophy. She's dunked on me already. So, in March 2020, Reason published an article by Kennedy, which is by what we were reading from Reason, saying atheism is a religion on par with theistic religions. Yeah, she's very interesting. I did not know she was a social conservative. This is horrifying. By the way, her actual degree isn't said here. It's actually said on another website, but that website's got way more details, so I'm not putting it on screen. So then the question comes down to is, before we get back, what is attachment parenting? So attachment parenting is a school of thought that is a parenting philosophy that proposes methods of aiming to promote attachment of the parent and infant, and not only by maximal parental empathy and responsiveness, but also by continual body closeness and touch. This is coined by the pediatrician William Sears. There's no conclusive body of research that shows Sears' approach is superior to mainstream parenting. Now, here's where, unfortunately, I have to agree with the libertarian. I hate that. Right-leaning libertarians are the bane. Libertarian was stolen from leftists. Let's be very clear. It was something that was taken from us. Attachment parenting is this notion by which you follow a very specific series of steps, such as keeping your baby very close, breastfeeding as long as possible until the kid wants to decide to stop, and so on. The argument of this particular parenting style is that it is something that good joke to you, Matt. It is something that creates better attachment, better bonding within the parent-child. Now, we'll talk about attachment theory in just a second because I think it's relevant, but I want you to understand the background here. Mary Ainsworth was the person who did the original, I believe, The Strange Situation. Says right there she did. And she was the one that had this come up. She came up with the original 3 types of attachment, the 4th one coming out shortly after. The theory believes in birth bonding, breastfeeding, baby wearing, bedding close to baby, which, by the way, every doctor in the world says is a bad idea. Sleeping with your baby means you can roll on them because babies are very jello filled and, easy to murder. Belief in Minecraft or Roblox. Belief in the language value of your baby's cries. Beware of baby trainers. Balance. I don't know what the balance part is, but I guess we'll get into it. So baby wearing, where your baby like gets a sock. You guys can't see that because of the thing in the way. Here, I'll move chat for a second. See, she's wearing a baby. Oof. Co-sleeping, sleeping together. He thinks that co-sleeping is an ideal arrangement and refers to it as the nighttime equivalent of baby wearing. Co-sleeping supports, in his opinion, the attachment and makes breastfeeding more convenient and prevents not only separation anxiety, but SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. However, in general, research doesn't confirm an advantage of co-sleeping over separate beds. A meta-study from Israel has pointed out in 2000 that sleeping aids such as pacifiers and teddy bears significantly improve the child's sleeping, while co-sleeping and frequent nighttime breastfeeding, if anything, hinders the formation of wholesome sleeping patterns. Co-sleeping mothers breastfeed 3 times as frequently during the night as mothers who have their beds to themselves. The more important factor for a child to get good sleep proved to be the mother's emotional accessibility, not her permanent physical closeness. So this is this is really a big deal. Like, if you want a mom to be able to function, wouldn't it make sense you'd want her to get enough sleep? Crying is attachment too. Respond to your baby's cries. I agree with this in principle. No sleep training. So kids should never go under sleep training. They should never be taught to sleep in their bed separately. I disagree with this firmly, especially because I think it can have demonstrable issues against the couple, especially if it doesn't matter if you're a heterosexual or a homosexual couple. I think this is just damaging. Balance, blah, blah, blah. Attachment pairing is more strenuous and demands more things, placing high responsibility on them without allowing for a support network. Right? He suggests a whole package of measures that aim to prevent an emotional burnout from the mother, like prioritization and delegation of duties and responsibilities. So this is where we get into the criticisms. One of the reasons why I don't like attachment parenting is because I think it's not great. So here's some of the ones here, and I think I agree with some of them. So parental tribalism. Cather Pollitt, a poet, essayist, and critic, said that referred to attachment parenting as a fad. Parents who follow the philosophy have been reproached as acting according to their own helplessness and unsatisfied emotional neediness, which may be the true reason why their decision to incessantly pacify their child by breastfeeding and baby wearing, even into toddlerhood, as the belief that the child actually needs all the permanent intimacy for there to be healthy development is only subterfuge. I have seen in office this be a thing. Let me be very clear. I've seen this. I have seen a parent literally use this kind of disconnection, this need for deep closeness. Hell, I've seen a borderline parent switch their favorite person from their husband to their goddamn kid. So one of the things they put up is a lot of stuff that is interesting. So they're really into, and these are all things that are goals. This strikes me as the kind of thing that pushes dangerous extent of elitism and paragroups. Yes, Schubert. Yes, it does. Gentle childbirth, natural childbirth, home birth. Okay, all fads. Use the homemade toddler food, organic ingredients, veganism, and paleo diet. You see where this starts to get weird? Use of washable cloth diapers, elimination communication. What is elimination communication? Is a practice in which the caregiver uses timing signals, cues, and intuition to address the infant's need to eliminate waste. I feel like that's a lot of weird projection. Gentle discipline, positive discipline, and non-confrontational parenting. Not against that per se. And then into naturopathic, holistic health, homeopathy, and denial of vaccination. William Sears' son, Robert Sears, published a vaccine book in 2007, which fueled vaccine skepticism among parents. So let's be very clear. As much as I am utterly surprised by Kennedy's bizarre descent into further conservatism, but calling it libertarianism, this is really weird. Oh, and homeschooling. That's never been a problem. I am firmly against homeschooling. I think it actually damages kids pretty well. I think it causes a lot of problems. If you've been homeschooled, I'm not going to say it particularly, to you, but I will say that in general, I do think kids do benefit from having those social skills and those attempts to get engaged with the larger community, especially because we don't live in a tribal system anymore. This is the one that really sticks with me, though. and we're going to be coming back in just a few to Kennedy. The feminist perspective. One of the big issues with this is that it cuts fathers out. This is a big condemnation here. And one of the big problems here is that because it makes the father basically a servitor to the mother, it essentially makes it so he's constantly, being delegated things. He doesn't get that same closeness. In fact, Sears was inherently against the notion of parents, that is specifically the father, being the primary caregiver. By the way, do you notice this is super heteronormative? But one of the things that's said here is, in France, Elizabeth Badinter argued that overparenting, obsession with washable dyers, organics, homemade infant food, and parenting practices as one of the recommended by Sears with breastfeeding into toddlerhood brings women eventually back into outdated patterns and gender roles. Do you get this? Not only does it put mom at primary and cut dad out, which is weird, it ignores gay couples, which is weird, and it also, in a weird way, essentially puts women back into being brood mares. So let me be clear. This is not okay. Denial of infant circumcision based. I'm not a big fan of circumcision. It doesn't do anything. I think kids should just be learned how to clean their fucking foreskin. There is some evidence to show that that's better, that better functions. Why are we talking about this? So one of the things that I am going to open is this. Finding that picture. So these are the attachment styles. They come from the Strange Situation. Strange Situation was an experiment where they basically have a baby in there with a parent, and they would just set them down and see what happens. And different kids responded differently. Secure kids, when set down, would chill for a little bit, play, do their thing, and then eventually they would cry, parent would pick them up. Golden. That's secure attachment. Aligns with the child, is in tune with the child's emotions, able to create meaningful relationships, empathetic, and able to set appropriate boundaries. Cool? Cool. But some kids didn't react that way. Their attachment was actually insecure. And so these came about as either avoidant or ambivalent, and then later the idea of disorganized. Avoidant was when the baby got set down, they would show no emotion. Now, if you hook them to an EEG, their little heart would be going a mile a fucking minute because they were having a panic attack, essentially, but they wouldn't show it. These kids had learned at a very young age that their cries aren't going to be answered. This is really sad. It is literally what happens due to neglect. Now, I can see how attachment pairing tries to avoid this, but let's move on. Ambivalent. This is what happened with kids that were immediately set down and they would just start bawling. But upon being picked up by their parents, they would then sort of push against them, not really wanting to be there. They could never be too close. They could never be too far. They could never find that right proximity to a parent. This leads to is due to inconsistency and sometimes intrusive parental communication. Like, for example, constant body closeness and never a sense of autonomy. This leads to anxious and insecure, controlling, blaming, erratic. So have you ever yelled at your partner for just talking to a member of the opposite or same sex, depending on your orientation? Might be ambivalent. These relationships tend to last shorter amounts of time because you tend to be someone who overreacts quite honestly. We can talk about that and what that looks like in adult relationship styles, but these are just the basics. We found a fourth one, which is disorganized. Disorganized is when a kid looks at their caregiver as a threat. They simultaneously want to find succor and comfort in their parent, but they also are afraid of them. So this is ignored, didn't see the child's needs, parental behavior was frightening or traumatizing. This results in chaotic, insensitive, explosive, abusive. I disagree with the abusive one. Untrusting, even while craving security. I think the abusive one's projection. This is where you're all over the map. And the reason for that is because you perceive your partners, your people you're attaching to, as both your love, your attachment, your primary relationship, but also a threat. This is different than ambivalent because ambivalent focuses exclusively on never feeling quite right. They're either too close or they're not close enough, and that can lead to panic. The two can look similar in certain ways. I would actually say disorganized shows similarities to both avoidant and ambivalent. Now, these are not permanent. These are things that can be repaired through therapy and time. Now, one could make an even a further argument that things like personality disorders such as borderline aren't disorders in and of themselves. I've heard an argument made that they are attachment disorders that go too far based on attachment issues. I can see that. I still like the term borderline and especially like to honor the history of that and remember what it's connected to, but I get the idea. So the argument for attachment parenting is it's trying to create secure attachment. However, I don't agree that it does this because by its nature, it creates a sense of such close bonds that it essentially ignores a kid's autonomy and does not lead to a kid learning appropriate boundaries. A perfect example of this would be the kid from fucking Game of Thrones, the one that was like on his mom's tit at like age, like, what was it, like 12? That shit's for real. So why do I bring all this up? Why am I doing a really quick run through of attachment theory? Why am I talking about bizarre ideas like attachment parenting that are trying to put you back in the home, keep you barefoot and pregnant? Well, let's be clear. The attachment commies try to indoctrinate you from the moment the ovum and the spermatozoa slather. At first, they make sleeping in bed with a warm, gooey infant sound like a symphony of shared familial bliss, nurtured and safe in the female bed. In reality, it's a bed that has ceased to offer a soft landing for hard boning and knows nothing of the word sleep for its elder inhabitants. I agree with half of this. Attachment parents are cranky, dogmatic, and have forgotten the acts that brought their baby into being. They are unnaturally unfucked, and they will do whatever they can to goad themselves into a resentful zombie army. Now, let's be super clear. Do you guys see the conflation? This washed up fucking VJ is basically saying that this is somehow related to communism or like Marx, when in reality, these are not related to this in the slightest. Marx never spoke about childcare. There's no evidence of Sears coming from any kind of political like ideology. In fact, let's go to Sears's page and just see what his political ideology is to see if Kennedy's like dropping the hits or, you know, if she's full of shit. So let's see here. Life and career. Not seeing anything about his fucking politics. I don't know if he was part of the Frankfurt School. Maybe that's our issues. Maybe he's part of the Frankfurt School. I don't know. So she goes off on vegans, talks about hysteria. Political vegans are Scientologists. Again, vegans can be a little bit dicky, but I feel like her entire writing style is just hyperbole, which is weird because I don't remember her being like this. Hold on. Like, can we go to YouTube? I need to look this up. Please, like, let's look at this. Like, I don't remember her. Can we just get to her? I just don't want. Gotta make sure that this shit isn't. Wow. Can you guys hear that? No audio? So, obviously the audio is being shitty again. Can't do anything about it right now. What I will say is this. Essentially what she's arguing right now is that her name is MTV Slave. That's the email to get a hold of her. Oh, I have a robot right now? Oh, shit. But basically, in this thing, she's being relatively balanced, but even the MTV Slave is super weird. Yeah, I have a feeling it's doing the audio bit thing again. I will play with it and fix it. It did this again today. I don't know why it keeps doing it. Let's move on. So, why the hell is Jess bringing up an aging VJ who clearly has gone off their fucking rocker? Well, because Kennedy is a supporter of LGBT rights, supposedly, well, at least same-sex marriage. And here's where things get super weird. She actively supported Gary Johnson in both the 2012 and 2016 presidential elections. let's be very clear. Gary Jansen, during a 2016 election presentation, said that he wanted to remove the Civil Rights Act. You know, the thing we're building LGBT acceptance on, the one that helped black people stop being treated as shitty. She wants that gone. Because Gary Johnson wanted that gone. That got a roar of fucking applause. And here's the thing is, David, I would agree. Maybe this is a change. Maybe she hit her head. I don't know. But that's not what happened. Like, during the rock and roll inaugural ball of Bill Clinton, she chanted Nixon now, whenever the Clintons went on stage. Now, let me clear. Bill Clinton was a friend of Epstein, and Hillary Clinton is a war hawk. I'm not a big fan of either of these people. Nixon was an out-and-out racist who helped institute the insurance nightmare we're in now. Can we be honest that this is really fucked? So let's see. When does she get into libertarian parenting? Not everyone's a special flower. Again, we're making the snowflake argument. Going into the notion that everyone gets participation trophies so no one feels bad. Tolerant. So let me be really clear here. Rugged individualism and the idea that you should push for kids to, you know, shine and have the cream of the crop raise up. Yeah, make baby pay for breast milk. What was that thing that was like the weird cop show that was run by a libertarian world? And it was like the cop points the gun at the guy and yells, you know, this arrest brought to you by Subway, eat fresh. Like, I feel like we're in that right now. Yeah, none of this has anything to do with attachment parenting. As you just saw, I just gave a more substantive, like, critique of attachment parenting than this crazy-ass MTV VJ. Now, this stuff was not apparent to me as a kid, but I was a dumb kid, so fair enough. But this notion that attachment parenting is doing all this damage, I'm even willing to follow her on that pier. I'm even willing to steelman that like I did a few minutes ago. But this person, by all rights, is trying to push for the whole pick yourself up by your bootstraps motif, you know, the ironic thing that conservatives now adopt unironically, despite the fact that it's absolute nonsense. But doesn't actually talk about the benefits or even show data about a supposed libertarian strategy, just going off into these bizarre, overly fucking wrought metaphors and like tangents. Right? Yeah, institutional participation trophies and yell at people for having them. So let me be clear here. I don't like libertarians. Their notion of a free market is terrifying and awful. To me, a market is, by its nature, a social system that the way we have currently organized is metaphorically equivalent to that of some kind of malignant, large sort of elder god. A being that is barely understood by the people that study it, and that's movements can make or break people's lives and even cause death. And to me, a market should be well regulated with several things off the table and decommodified. Medicine, for one, schools, etc. One thing I think I agree with Vosh on is what do you stand for versus what are you against? I stand for a socialistic or at very least a SOCDEM future. Markets are fine as long as they know their place. Markets work best when they are controlled. Put in chains and kept under fucking control. There's a difference between a domesticated dog and a wild dog. One of those can be wonderful. It could be your best fucking friend. One of my best friends is my dog. One of those things can chew out your neck. So let me be very, very fucking clear. This woman is insane. And the notion that the market should be unregulated is pure libertarian nonsense. I'm not going to do debates ever. Might do a panel here and there. But markets are not inherent to capitalism. True. But markets are made malignant and cancerous by capitalism. Can we be honest about that? I agree, Gabrielle. Fucking true. Most libertarians are insane, and many of them argue for lowering the age of consent. Despite the fact that all available neurological evidence suggests that people don't really fully develop and mature until around 26. There's a reason why the age markers in our server are set up in such a way. Because if somebody in their fucking 40s, like someone that's the same age as me, says they want to vote, like fucking date a 19-year-old, I'm going to look at that shit fucking cross-eyed. And unfortunately, I grew up in a time where that shit was normalized. It's gross. Stop it. I'm not going to say that outright, Brittany, but I'm not I don't know. I'm not disagreeing. Let's say it that way. I mean, when I say consent, I mean a different kind of consent. No, I agree, David. But the fact of the matter is that I think you can learn from failure in a way that is much more supportive of a person's like sense of self, that isn't based entirely on a notion of you fucking failed. Like libertarianism basically says the market by definition decides the winner. I don't feel super comfy with that. This is a social system that nobody has the reins on, making life and death decisions for humanity. The market goes down and people lose their jobs. Can we put this thing in chains? I mean, I'm not a big fan of like incarceration, but I'll make an exception for markets. Holy shit. So let's end this here, but let's be very clear. The fact that one of the VJs I watched as a kid is just a insane Ayn Randian libertarian, and the fact that like libertarians wanted to get rid of the Civil Rights Act, the fact that they literally, many of them argue for fucking lowering the age of consent, the fact that like she goes off on like a fucking 10 paragraph or so screed against attachment parenting, but never actually discusses any of the theory behind it or any of the like actual useful criticisms against it is insanity. And she can say she's all for gay marriage, but let's be super clear. Do not ever call yourself an ally of gay people if you're a libertarian. The market and capitalism disproportionately affect many marginalized groups, and one of them is gay people and trans people. But I probably guess she doesn't give a shit about trans people. Nothing in her bio said so. Maybe that's projection. Not sure. Anywho, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also consider donating to the channel. You can donate at streamlabs.com/transgirltherapist/tip or at patreon.com and become a patron. Patreon.com/transgirltherapist.